military Humvee that was armored, and it is staying in the shop more than it's staying operational. And this, over the past month, we've had 3 SWAT operations that I've sent our SWAT officers into that they were not properly equipped to handle the situation because we didn't have armor on the scene. And the type of situations I'm referring to, we had a subject that was barricaded in pretty much a compound that had high fence, electric fence around it, chain gates, and we had to approach it in a regular patrol vehicle, shining a spotlight on it, hoping he didn't, keeping him blinded long enough for us to get to a point we could negotiate or make a breach. This vehicle could safely put officers up to the front door, negotiate through it, insert gas into a target without having the officers to actually get out of the vehicle, and they can insert the gas through the vehicle into the target area without putting themselves with any danger. Other advantages to this vehicle, it can be used for different type of rescue missions, be it fire, police, disasters. It's made for a multitude of different uses. The issue we're having is these take a year to be built, and I need the approval to go ahead and start having one of these built for the city of Prattville. Again, it'd take a year to get it built, but it would, the life expectancy of that type of vehicle is 10 years plus. It's fully armored, it's air conditioned, it's set up to transport personnel in it. If you see all over the country now, we're having a lot of active shooter situations, and everybody says, well, things can't happen in Prattville. Well, we had a police officer shot in Prattville not too long ago that nobody expected that was going to happen either, but if it's happening across the country, it's going to happen here eventually. So I'm the type that I want to plan outside the box and plan for things that people don't expect to happen, but when they do, we're equipped to handle it. If we did have an active shooter type situation, this vehicle would be used to recover the wounded as shots are being actively fired. We could get to people, get them assistance and get them out, and also get officers on the scene that could end the situation. So there's a multitude of why I need it, but it's just a point of getting the approval to start having this vehicle built, and we will be looking at other avenues, certain grants and other things from the time it starts getting built to the time we're obligated to pay for it.
And basically, I'm going to piggyback off him. It went through the police committee, and we were good with it. I just wanted to bring it to the finance committee because of the large sum, and that if y'all are good with it, I'm going to move it forward and everything. So, you good?
Okay, I'm good.
All right, if you would just put that on the agenda.
And this is going to be something similar to the fire truck that we just did, that we're not going to amend the budget for this year since it's going to take 12 months to do, that we'll just re-budget it for next year because that's when the payment will actually come due.
Okay, and the next is education and retention program.
All right. What as everybody's aware across the nation, police departments are having trouble recruiting officers. They're having trouble keeping officers with the environment that they're having to work in now. And Ms. Thrash and myself have been working on a program for the past 3 years, and within the last couple of weeks, with the assistance of Daniel in the mayor's office, we were able to come up with this packet, and we really believe this is going to help us recruit and retain police officers. It's going to start off with basically, if you have an education, you'll get credit for your education up to a 7.50 is as far as you can go in education, but Daniel is going to explain the money a little bit better. But if you have a bachelor's or associate or master's on up the line, you'll get credit for that. The ones that are already here get it, the ones coming on board get it, and it will continue on as long as if we don't get in any kind of financial crisis, it'll be able to help us retain and recruit. We're going to have right now, we're slotted for 91 officers, and I'm at 80. I don't think I've seen us at full capacity since I've been here, the 8 years I've been here. And we're going to do an incentive for post-certified officers. They will be given a certain amount to come over here, and once they get here, they will have to sign a contract for a certain amount of time so that we get their full. It'd be like them going back through the academy, but they're obligated to us, giving them this enhancement for coming here. If they already owe money in the academies, that money would go back to help pay for their academies. Because if you have to serve 2 years in a police department, or if not, then that police department has to reimburse the department you're coming from for the academy cost. So up front, if they owe that will go directly back to the academy that they come from. If they're already past their 2 years, they would get this in 2 different payments. Again, I'm going to let Daniel discuss the money issues, but we feel like this is going to draw the 3 to 5 year veterans and law enforcement to us. Once we get to full capacity, that benefit can go away, because I think once we got a history, once people get here, we don't lose. We're not losing people to other departments. The fixed win right now, because we have so many openings, 8 years ago when I started, your basic officer on the street had 15 to 20 years. So now we're in that retirement phase where we lost a lot from retirement. We have a very young department now that they're going to be here a while, and we've been recruited by federal and state agencies with the caliber of persons that are working for us now. They've been heavily recruited, but we're not losing them. We might lose 1 or 2 here or there, but we're not like other departments where they're just running out the door. We keep, when we get them, they stay here. So that would definitely, from the talks and the way we've sat down and this has been calculated out, it would definitely benefit the police department. And do I need to go into the other one across the board, or are you going to bring that up?
Yeah, we can do these 2 first.
All right. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Daniel as far as the cost of this packet.
So Chief Thompson touched on 2 separate programs that we're looking at. One of them is more of a recruitment program, and then one of them is an education and retention, recruitment and retention program with the education piece. And I'm going to play a little bit of, our HR director's not able to be here today, so I'm going to play a little, wear an HR hat some too. But, basically the education program, obviously it's something that not a lot of cities have currently, that would put us in a progressive step and sort of the lead, certainly in the area, but also across the state, to attract and retain the best officers that we can, and educated officers too. Also, for any current officers that we have that may not have an education, we have numerous programs with several different universities and colleges in the area where they get tuition breaks. So this is kind of an incentive for them to better themselves too while they're here, taking classes, online or at night, whatever the case may be. This is a program that's intended to be kept on, but it's something, the way we've planned on structuring it, is it's something that can be removed if necessary. If for some reason we are not able to fund this, if we have a 2011 crisis at some point, then this is something that could be removed if we absolutely have to, based on the way we're going to structure it. But it's certainly something that we intend on keeping going forward. Estimated cost of the education piece is going to be right around $100,000 a year. That includes the salaries and wages bump, but it also includes FICA. RSA is not applicable to this, the education piece RSA is applicable to, and that is included in there as well. So $100,000 a year is the cost. This is something that I think we would like to get to as soon as possible if council's willing to move forward. We've got ample funds in the current police department salaries and wages line item to cover this for the rest of this fiscal year, and then starting next fiscal year, it'd be roughly $100,000 that we'd have to add to the budget going forward. In this type of incentive, really, both of these incentives are not anything new. We've done this with other departments in different ways, at least since I've been here, and certainly before that as well. We've helped out when we had trouble hiring vehicle maintenance workers. We've had trouble hiring sanitation workers in the past. Even the fire department, we were losing a lot of firefighters to other cities. Well, we fixed that with the pay plan adjustment. We're not having near the issue with that. Fire department's fully staffed. And I'll say sanitation, vehicle maintenance are fully staffed too right now, I believe. So this is not something new. It's just something that's tailored a little more to PD because they're in a very unique situation right now nationally. And, it's hard to attract those guys and ladies to come in and work and do that job. But this is something, both of these programs are something that I think will help. To touch on the recruitment piece, so Chief mentioned a sum of money that we would pay upon hiring an A-post certified potential employee or recruiter, an applicant. And like I said before, this is something that I think is a very progressive action. It's something that could put us at the top of any list of police officers out there looking for maybe a change or looking for their first job. So other cities around us are going to do something at some point because they have to. The supply of police officers is dwindling, and everybody's going to be fighting for them. And we not only want to fight for them, but we want to fight for the good ones. And I think these programs help us in that aspect as well. The sum of money, half of it will be paid up front when they come on board, and then half of it will be paid after they complete their probation period and also the internal training. And that usually takes 9 months. Probation period is 9 months anyway, but the training usually gets done in about 9 months. So they'd get the second half of their payment then. And then there is a clawback feature over 3 years where we would claw back 136 for every month that they did not stay with us for 3 years. And they would sign an agreement to such on the front end. There's adequate cost. Obviously, this is a problem that we have now that we really want to fix now. There's ample room in the police department budget to cover this for this year. And, once we get fully staffed, you're not throwing this sum of money because we're not hiring more once we're fully staffed, right? So, we've got plenty of funds in here for this for now, and I think it's something that we ought to seriously look at going ahead and doing. But so there wouldn't be any kind of budget amendments or anything associated with this piece.
Now, in your packet, it says A-post lateral. That would be like if we had an out-of-state officer coming in, they would go through a 2-week refresher course with the state to get certified in Alabama. So that's the lateral transfer. It wouldn't be like we had a deputy or a Montgomery officer transferring over here and pulling all that. That's just strictly out-of-state personnel if we had that happen.
Are we good to go forward with that?
I've already talked to Lisa Brush personally, so.
So are we good to have that on Tuesday's agenda as well? These will be 2 separate resolutions to vote on separately, so.
Good. All right. Police jurisdiction.
Okay. Well, in your packet, you'll see where captioned here June 2021 legislative act 297. Actually, my understanding, this was sort of pushed by the County Commissioners Organization Association, and basically in it talks about police jurisdiction, how far out it goes, and how you can actually bring it back in. And as of January of 2021, under this act, when it comes into effect, which I think will actually be sometime in August when they have to go into effect. But as of January 2021, whatever the current police jurisdiction is what it will always be. You can, as far as extending it outwards, you can bring it back in, but then you can never extend police jurisdiction. You can extend corporate limits, but you cannot extend police jurisdiction. With all that said, just keep it in a nutshell, everything you've heard here, how we've been challenged to have full staff for police department and everything else, I think it's some of our duty to keep our citizens protected. And several weeks ago, engineering went out, put out a 3-mile stake and a 1-mile stake. 1.5 mile stake. The 3-mile was almost to the Red Barn, going into a toggable that's, y'all might know where that is, or if you know where the Oreo cow is on Highway 14. Anyway, that's
Near the well, there's a well right there. The cow stays by the well.
black on both ends and white in the middle.
I knew what you meant. I just don't.
Anyway, that was 1.5 miles. That's a long ways. And then you also have the roads that go, because it's a 3 mile or 1.5 miles at this time, 3 miles because in this app. That's a lot of territory for these guys to cover. I feel like we need to entertain, but it has to be done by an ordinance. It has to be, cannot be enacted until the January of the next year. We have to let the county know about it, and you can only do it once every 24 months. That's what's decided. But you can bring the police jurisdiction back in half-mile increments. So I think it needs to be looked upon as our role here is the municipal corporate limits of the city of Prattville. In a nutshell, again, a little bit of the history. Prior to 2000, Prattville used to provide police, fire, and so many other services in the police jurisdiction. And then the administration at that time decided to bring it back in. There was a lawsuit and a compromise, which became part of what we've talked before about was the 2010 plan. And during that, though, we did have building permits and inspections, everything that go out. How far is it? 5 miles?
At least 3.
3. Okay.
5 is planned.
But there was another legislative act that said that had to be reaffirmed, and that was brought before the fire committee. That's over. I'm sorry, maybe it wasn't fire committee. No, it was fire committee. It was the building department. That's what it was. Sorry. So it was taken before the fire committee, and they decided to take no action on it. So since then, we do not give out any building permits, don't do any of the inspections and everything else. But anyway, I think our biggest responsibility is to our citizens inside the corporate limits and to our police department. And I think it's time for us to take a look exactly how far the police jurisdiction needs to go.
So you're saying we would need to do 3 separate acts over every certain amount of months, you can bring it in another half mile. So if, I misunderstood that. You said it can only be done every 6 months. Incrementally 1/2 mile at a time.
No, just, you can bring it all the way back in to the corporate limits.
But then you could not do another change.
For 24 months.
I don't know where it goes, 6 months, okay.
And you have to let the county commission know in 30 days in advance, I think it was. At one time, I was thinking we ought to bring it in 1.5 miles, but with this new act, I think it ought to be 1 mile. To me, it's just a lot easier to keep up with. People can say 1.5 miles is easy, but anyway, whether it's 1 mile, 1.5 miles, or if y'all decided to bring it all the way back in, I think what we're looking at here is protection of our corporate citizens. We do need the county residents. They're a very important part of this community as well. They do come in, shop, and work, and play inside the city of Prattville. But the climate that we're in right now with the difficulty of fully staffing our police department, I think now is the time to take some kind of action, but it's going to be left up to the city council.
Well, Chief Thomas, can I get your thoughts on that?
We do spend a lot of time on calls outside the corporate city limits, and a lot of times it ties up 2 or 3 units at one time. With the numbers we have right now, when I first started here, talking with the mayor and estimates of what Prattville had then, I felt like we should have been at 100 officers 8 years ago. With the growth Prattville's got and coming, we're pushing 120 to 150 if we want to continue to give citizens the service protection that I think they deserve. So it's just a matter of we're growing, and we're growing faster than we can cover the.
So once we do grow, we'll have the option to extend back out some.
Not the police jurisdiction.
If we don't.
If we grow all the way to that 1.5, it stops, it doesn't extend out. So, now we can still grow as corporate limits, but as police jurisdiction, because we can surpass that 1.5 miles, right?
Yes.
So,
Okay.
are we ready for that one, or are we just gonna?
Y'all discussed that in police committee already?
We have discussed it in the police
Public
committee. I don't think I'll be honest, I forgot exactly what we decided. I wanted to bring it back in here and see how y'all felt.
I took it as Larry Ward's vote. The way I took it.
He was in favor of
He
it?
was in favor of it, but I can't speak for anybody.
Because I think Robert left before we talked about that.
I drove part of it yesterday, because the mayor has been, we've been talking about this for a
Yeah.
while. It's not like you just presented this to us today. And the mayor challenged some of us at some point to drive it and to pay attention when you're leaving town to where that sign is, and notice where it says police jurisdiction starts here, police jurisdiction ends here, whatever. And so I have been, as I've been going to Montgomery, yesterday I went to Birmingham, coming back in, I'm noticing these, and I'm going, oh my gosh, Quinnaby Quinn is inside the PJ. I'm looking at these different roads and going, I consider those people as living in the boonies. But they're actually in the, excuse the pun, actually living in the PJ. So I've been noticing the signs, and it really is an extended amount when you consider, if you were to draw a circle and make a radius and a diameter, it's a lot bigger than you think. So I'm certainly amenable to looking at bringing that in. So.
I'd be open to hearing more about it.
Okay. All right. And then alcohol ordinance.
Yes, I'd like y'all to entertain, and Andrew Odom's worked on this just a little bit, but the ABC, when it was a standalone entity, acted, I think, with a lot of authority. In my opinion, since it's gone up underneath the LEA, they have changed a lot. If you look at some of the eateries that have been around for some time, Lost Miles up here on top of the hill and some other them, for example, when they had an outdoor area reserved for alcohol consumption, it always had some kind of fencing, some kind of permanent type barrier around it. Since ABC has gone up underneath the LEA, their rules and regs have really relaxed a lot. It's almost, when I've talked with them, it's almost to a point, if it's spray painted on the ground, they're okay with that. And that's, we have a lot going on downtown, and I just feel like that we owe this to the community, not only for the non-consumers of alcohol who decide they want to look around downtown or in some shopping centers or wherever it might happen to be, but also for the ones who will be consuming. We don't need the police department to have to come in and take action because somebody lost their way just a little bit, stepped outside of their zone, and that makes that person is open consumption. That also gives a challenge to the business owners who are providing that alcohol. But I think that have some kind of permanent type barrier that they have to put up inside the drinking area, I think it is a prudent thing to do. So that way it actually helps protect everybody, keep our police department from having to take action.
Do we want to block our sidewalk, like on Leah's?
Well, the city sidewalk, no. This is strictly only on
Their
private
property.
property.
Okay. But isn't some of the sidewalk in that?
Some of her property, I think, does come over. I can't verify that,
A
but
small amount.
maybe a foot and a half or so.
And it varies, obviously depending on location.
But this is strictly for the property owner to put up a barrier if they're going to allow outside alcohol consumption.
Right.
And I will, just speaking on the police department, it would be a lot simpler if we had the same, we can do more than what ABC says, we can't do less as far as their ordinance. We have to be as much as they say, but we can do more, and they will support it. But, you know, we got several different, what is being classified as fenced-in areas. It's a chain of fence, in my opinion, it's not. So I think we need to come up with something across the board that's consistent for everybody when we do this.
So if it's like, and the only one I'm thinking of is Leah's, because that's a main, because I know that she tries to have it roped off sometimes, you know, or have the tables. So would that affect that business any?
You know, again, I don't know exactly where her property lines go, but if she, and there'd be some steps she'd have to go through. Down here in the historical district, they have to go before HPC to get a fence, certificate of appropriateness, I think is what they call it. So she would possibly have to, if she wanted to take action, to go there. But you know, you also have Bella Vistas over here.
Okay.
And they have a back door that actually, I'm not certain exactly where our easement starts over there behind it. But now their property, as far as I know, goes all the way to the concrete wall, retaining wall for the floodplain, for the flood prevention program back there. So technically, they could actually walk outside with a beer if they're selling them. And I guess somebody could just stand over on the sidewalk. If you really...
Yeah, that's, you know, obviously, like I said, there's different circumstances. That is their property, but we have an easement across a good portion of it. Some of it we have, right outside here, we have all the way to the building is where the easement stops, which would incorporate all the sidewalk.
So
Other areas we don't have all the way.
One of the issues with Kimberly is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Robbie, but part of it up against the wall where some of her tables are her property.
Yes.
But for them to come out of the door to get to that property, they're they're our property. So that puts them back
Typically
in.
step outside of an imaginary line that they don't, you know, the patron doesn't realize that. So that's why I think that's one reason the police are asking for a definitive barrier, so that everyone knows, not just the police, but also the patron knows, hey, I've left this property.
I got you.
This seems like most of those little towns I go to that have established, this kind of seems pretty standard. I mean, I've seen a lot of places, you know, they do have, like, if you go downtown Montgomery, I'm just thinking like where Cesar's is or something like that. They've got a little area that's fenced off. But I think that's also creating a barrier to there. You know, could be, you know, so somebody is walking down the sidewalk, you know, they've got that barrier, and it's a definitive line, so to speak, as to yes or no, where you in that space. You know, makes it simple, I'd assume, to make a determination of whether they're, you know, walking on public property or city property with an open container or whatever.
How do you feel, Marley?
As long as it does not put a burden on the existing restaurants. So if, for example, if a restaurant chose not to have outdoor alcohol, they don't have to build anything. So I think it pretty much doesn't put a burden on it. It's their choice. If they think it would add to their atmosphere and their draw and their crowd and make them more money, then it's an investment on their part, the same way that serving a new dish would be an investment or buying new plates. So I don't see this as a burden to them. I see it as just, like John said, kind of a standardization for the city.
Yeah, they have the option to do it or not, you know. But that, if they want that outside environment, then this would be the requirement.
The only challenge that I know of, and something I need, is probably going to be Adrian's over here, because we do have an easement for public access. Now, you got a restaurant, any age can go in and out of the restaurant area. A bar, which is what Adrian's is, you have to be 21 over on that. So that might be some burden on the existing one, because we have an easement right up to the building. And so if he decides he's going to try to allow patrons to drink outside, that easement has to be taken into effect, because it will prohibit full access for all of our citizens, for public access to walk on the sidewalks.
And I think that once again, that each one of those is almost case by case. What happens with your exact property? I had conversations with the proprietor over there, and he understands if he tries to do something, that easement had to be redrafted and the access accommodated with additional sidewalk that's outside of that area. So once again, it increases a burden to him only if he elects to do that.
Right.
And if he does, he has to know he or she has to know this is what you have to do to meet our regulation. But you don't have to do anything.
Absolutely.
But if you choose to do something, here's what you're going to do.
And just to piggyback again off of Adrian's over here, it might be, again, there's an easement over there, because the city made some investments in the creek wall on their property back in 2000.
1999, 2000, depending on which side, front or the back you're in.
So in my mind's eye, I'm not being legal in the room, but if he decided he really wanted to put something outside, he could come forth with a project to the council here and say, I want to buy myself out of this easement. We realize y'all had made this certain amount of investment, so here's what I got in the table. So I mean, there's, like I say, it's case by case, option by option, but
And we've dealt with these issues with not just alcohol encroachment, with people wanting to put this or that or the other out in the right of way. And we've had to say, well, sorry, but this is where the city property is and this is where your property is.
And just a reminder that Teddy's bar was the same
That's what
issue.
the same issue. He was, I don't know if he was bringing alcohol necessarily, but he erected a fence in front of Teddy's, which was out on the city's right of way off of his property. And had to work with him on that to just identify and, basically just let him know, yeah, this is right in front of your business, but here's your property. But once again, case by case, everybody's a little different, especially downtown. The buildings go in and out, and go around the corner or whatever the individual case is.
Are we prepared to go forward with it? Do we have a prepared ordinance? Do we have something prepared? Okay. Are y'all ready to move forward? So Lisa, if you would put that on the agenda.
and help me out, I guess there'd be a ordinance, you asked if layover, unless the rules were suspended. I might have even asked that on this one, the rules don't be suspended. Let it be brought up and let it stay like it normally would. That way it has time for the public to even know more about it. Somebody was putting out.
Do you want to do a public hearing?
I don't think that it really needs a public hearing,
Okay.
but I think that instead of suspending the rules, let it go through the proper process, and that way it's out there, and if somebody's really interested in it, they have time to research and get back with us.
Okay. All right. All right. Noise ordinance. Now, I just want to say something about this. Like Popeyes and Captain D's, right next to those housing, and they're coming to, the dumpsters are coming about 5:30 in the morning, and it's waking up some of my constituents, and I know that's one area that's an issue. Is there other issues in the city?
Yes, there's some, here and there, and I have my page tagged right here, and we have amended this somewhere, I think in 2008 or so, to get it to this stage, and realize there's still some more issues, because it has on there, except there's on those properties classified as B1, 2, 3, 4, O1, and so forth and so on. So I think if we really figure out what zoning or exact wording that needs to be changed, I don't think there'll be a lot of modification. But I think that when somebody comes in, sometimes at 5 a.m. in the morning, 4:30, it's very disruptive. So we need to find some way to help protect our citizens. And some of it might be some rezoning areas, and I know Scott's going to be bringing up about some zoning map corrections and updates, some rezoning, for lack of a better word, on this one. So, to me, we do need to be watching out for citizens, and the business is so close to a residential area. I think they need to be mindful. And most of the time, I've really found out is that once the company is notified that they're in violation, then they find a way to continue to do business and work inside of that. So I don't think this should be a burden on anybody.
So can we do something now on that?
I think so.
All right, so can we change it to 7 a.m. or?
I think you just have to change the zonings where it includes all zonings.
Okay.
Because it's already 7.
Okay.
So just all zonings could not have waste containers dumped until 7 a.m. Because right now it specifies which zonings you can and which you don't, so you would just have to include all zonings.
You want to go all zones or just all the city?
You could do in the city, there you go. You just gotta include all of them.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I ask is, well, for one, and I'll talk more later, but, the Plan Commission's begun the rezoning or the new zoning update. They may introduce a few new zones, so I don't want us to lock it in on
In the
that.
city limits.
On the other side, though, citywide, do keep in mind, like industrial areas, that may be fine to go get your dumpster. If you're in the South Industrial Park, although they back up to houses too. So, hey, that's just something to keep in mind. But yeah, I'd be careful about naming the particular zones since the zoning ordinance may change.
Well, the M1 and M2.
In the city?
What is South Industrial Park?
M2.
M2. I mean,
It's already on here.
how's that?
It's already on here,
I
seven.
should say. Could you just about take out all the B's and the O's and leave the M's?
Well, and I'll show a map later this morning about, there's some M zones that probably don't need to be M anymore. So right now, they're still industrial, but hopefully in the future they won't be. So, again, that's kind of the trade-off. I don't know enough about the dumpster business. I realize they want to get out early because of beating traffic and things like that. Parking lots are empty. But we do have industrial areas that we want to, again, our South Industrial Park, West Industrial Park, and just some areas here and there that are zoned, 1 or 2. But,
Can we exclude those?
we can, like I said, you can name them specifically. You can either do a citywide or you can name the zones. Although, like I said, we may add some zones with the new zoning ordinance. In particular, the one I'm thinking about is we're considering adding an institutional zone, which would cover like schools and churches and probably governmental buildings, things like that. So a lot of and again, we'll spend a lot of time thinking about it. A lot of your schools are in residential areas, a lot of your churches in residential areas. So we just want to be careful about those that are in truly residential areas. We don't want dumpsters early on those. But if you're on Highway 82 or somewhere like that, it may not be such a big deal to have an early dumpster pickup. So that's just thoughts.
Well, my preference is to really, like I say, take out the B's and the O's and leave the M's. I think that would cover what we're looking for. You're right, but I think, you help me out. I think as we all know and love the rat farm, it's M.
It's M1, right?
It's M1.
And all the surrounding area is M1.
And then College Heights, I think that's R4.
That Great Park is M1, or maybe, it's M1.
Okay.
We own it, so it's less of a problem, but yeah, it's M1 because of Gurney's.
And you're not going to find paintbrush is going to cover every scenario here. But I think leaving the M's in here, taking out the B's and O's, I think that will cover it.
Like we always come back to it if it's an issue.
Yeah.
So, okay. Can we add that amendment?
leave M1, M2, everything else comes out, right?
Just back to the South Industrial Park, there are some homes that back up to it, all of the city, how big is that strip, 130 feet?
No, it's closer to 300, I think, total.
Oh, is that, okay.
Well, we had a 50 and then we added 100, it's 170, you're closer.
Okay,
You're
yeah, so
closer.
the city does own a pretty wide strip of property backing up to Oaks and What Vista, so that's less of an issue, we're not gonna have dumpsters on that, so. And then the north tenant, they're pretty far away from that anyway, so.
It is industrial, and then also International Paper is out there, and they're moving 24/7. I think that's a little bit like living beside a railroad track. You get used to that, where, I don't think, and I haven't heard from any folks out there, I don't know if you have come out there.
Not about dumpsters, no.
So, I think that covers what we're looking for.
Are y'all good with that?
Thank you.
All right, and then smoking ordinance. Basically, I've had Ben Aker come to the police committee meetings and pitch that during parades, he has concerns with citizens smoking in that area. So I don't know if we're ready for, what I would like to do, we've talked about it, is designate a smoking area in front of City Hall, so at least there's an area, and then I don't want to put the burden on the police department of enforcing, but at least if we establish that has a smoking area, maybe the smokers will go and come and locate here.
I would propose that as signage. I mean, how would we identify that and let people know? Or would we potentially put signage out there, this is a non-smoking area?
You'd have to advertise it and put signs up.
I don't think it'd be a non-smoking area, because that's too broad, especially talking about parade. It'd have to be
I mean,
a smoking area.
okay. Did I say non-smoking?
Well, I'm just saying how they would designate where it's at, if they're a block down the road and they don't see anything,
I think this would be a first step, and then we could kind of go from there and see, adjust. But if we designate a smoking area, and then we can kind of see what problems we have, if it's a good idea, if it even
During
moves.
parades and special events.
Yeah.
And just
What do you
kind
think?
of announce it ahead of time somewhat to get people familiar with what we're trying to do.
We can come up with,
You have to advertise on social media.
some good looking signs, which I think, all in all, I think most everybody's respectful.
Yeah.
But you still have some.
You good with that, Chief?
I will enforce whatever you put on the books.
Well, I don't want to put enforcement on it.
If it's an ordinance, we'll have to enforce it.
Well, I mean, if we just designate a smoking area and see how that goes and go from there.
I mean, Robbie can tell you can put a 30 mile an hour, 40 mile an hour speed limit sign. And
They're not
you
gonna
still
obey
got
it,
to call
yeah.
it poison blue.
Put some more ashtrays out there.
Right. But I think it's the first step.
I think so.
Little haze going.
Are y'all for that, or?
I think it's a good compromise, because we've been talking about this for about 2 years and trying to figure out how to whittle it down, how to whittle it up, back and forth with everything. And I think this is the best proposal I've heard so far, so certainly willing to try.
Well, it's a step in a good direction, and I think I'll follow what you're saying. Let's see how that does, if we have to make some adjustments. At the end of the day, I don't see how you can police that across the whole, how many blocks that this parade will go through. I think the focus needs to be on public safety and traffic and things like that. If we can try to direct them in that place and see how that works,
Yeah.
You have 20 police officers there, and 10,000 spectators. You know, you can only do what you can do.
So it's not gonna be an ordinance, we're just gonna designate a smoking zone just ourselves, or are we doing it in an ordinance? We're just
Do you
gonna-
want just a resolution that gives support for this? Or just, I mean, some blanket resolution that the council supports creating?
Do we need to do something?
You don't have to. I just wondered if you wanted.
You know, we just need direction on, are we just
Right.
putting signs? Because if there's no teeth to it, they can get onto them all day, or, and there's not.
Well, I don't want to put enforcement on them at this time. I
Then
just
we don't
want,
need to do an ordinance, right?
yeah.
Yeah, if you don't
Or a
want to
resolution.
have officers there
If
A
there's
to.
resolution would just be.
That's what I'm saying. I don't
It'd
want
just be
that on.
Hey, we're doing
So,
this.
Let's just see
We're just gonna publicly advertise a
smoking area.
smoking zone in front of City
Says
Hall.
people
We
will
don't
work with
want some signage
Yeah.
during parades. And that's as far as this goes right now, right? Because he really wants the whole city to, smoking at every event, so I'm just making sure it's just parades.
I think this is a
Well,
first
he's talking
step.
about city events, right?
Well, I don't know how we could do city
We
events.
can't.
Well,
I mean,
the city
unless
event
it-
may not even actually
Yeah.
Be
be.
in front of City Hall.
Yeah.
If you're having City Fest and you're down around the curve.
Yeah.
If you're having the Christmas tree lighting, nobody's watching the Christmas tree lighting in front of City Hall. They're down there.
What if we're encouraging people to come to City Hall during Christmas to take photos with things, and I don't know how we can make that the designated smoking area during that kind of stuff either.
Yeah.
Well, be mindful though, because this, somewhat happened several years ago on the City Fest. We had the band back here, very confined area, which things have evolved quite a bit, but it was back over here, and some smokers, police officer, very nice, polite and all that other, but there's no teeth, no enforcement. Officer can come over and say, please be nice, go over here, but he can't make him go over there.
Right,
Because
and
there's
that's-
no ordinance or anything.
Right. That's what, I don't want to put anything on him
Okay.
at this time.
I could make a comment in the mayor's report about us creating an area, and no matter what we do, somebody's gonna be happy, somebody's gonna be,
And one caveat, are we a smoke-free campus
yes.
or tobacco-free, I shouldn't say tobacco-free campus? Like, every city facility is supposed to be tobacco-free, so that could be another,
And that's
we're telling people to
yeah.
smoke here.
And one thing I wanted to point out, like the definition of smoking, it looks like it was in 92, so it doesn't, it says lighted products and tobacco products, so it doesn't include vapes or anything, it's not tobacco, so just keep that in mind if that does want to change going forward. The current definition, I don't think would cover vapes.
When we covered that with the Stanley Jensen Stadium, we were doing something, didn't we? Wasn't that discussed
I think it was.
way back in the day?
I know we updated that handbook, so I'm sure all that, so that's.
Vapes should be included.
Vapes are in that handbook.
I'll say, it's a form of smoking, really.
Well, we'll try this approach and monitor it, and we'll let them take it back.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And then the number 2, American Rescue Plan, Act 2021. Who's here?
I can do that. So we've talked a little bit about police department recruiting and retention and things of that nature. This is going to touch a little bit along those same lines, but more citywide. So, let me find the right notes. All right. So earlier this year, calendar year, federal government legislature passed the American Rescue Plan Act. And as part of that act, there's a coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund. And basically, the city is set to get roughly $6.6 million from this fund. And it's similar to the CARES Act, but it's a lot less restrictive. There are more things that you can use this money for than what we got through the coronavirus relief fund, which was part of the CARES Act. So a lot of acronyms and things, but basically, and I'm going to put on my human resources hat, but basically what we've done is we put together a plan where we would like to reward and show some appreciation to all city employees. This would include the police department, but this is a citywide thing to basically show appreciation for the work that they did during COVID. So, you know, with the CARES Act, there were some opportunities in there for some hazard pay and that kind of stuff for certain groups of employees. A couple of cities used those funds for that purpose or attempted to, and they did it very choppy. So what we're trying to do is do a blanket citywide payout, and it will be like a single sum payment to all employees. Numbers we're looking at, $4,000 for all full-time employees, $2,000 for all part-time employees, which we only have a handful of part-time employees. And basically, some of the language from this act, you know, an eligible source of funding for this $6.6 million that we'd be getting is to provide premium pay for essential workers, offering additional support to those who have borne and will bear the greatest health risk because of their service in critical sectors. Government is considered a critical sector. Employers are both permitted and encouraged to use coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds to offer retrospective premium pay, recognizing that many essential workers have not yet received additional compensation for the work performed during the COVID months. And we're still in it, albeit in a much better place. So this is the proposal. This is not something, shifting gears to the financial side, this is not something that would affect our budget. This is basically free money that came in through this act, and it would not be a recurring thing. It's a one-time payment.
So just for clarification purposes, this is not including like elected officials?
Now, this would exclude elected officials, the mayor, our appointed position like city judge, city attorney, city prosecutor. Who else we got?
Full-timers?
Yes. And there's a seasonal, thank you. Seasonal employees would not be included in that.
We paid them. We did pay them during COVID.
And we did make the decision last March, March of 2020, that we were going to continue to pay those seasonal workers even though all of the sports had been canceled, that we came up with a calculation of how much they would typically work. We continued to pay them just to try and keep the local economy afloat is what our intention was with that. So same thing with our school crossing guards. School was out, virtual, we didn't need them. We continued to pay them through the end of what would have been the school year, in-person school year. So they would not be included in this.
But we have come up with another plan to enhance school crossing guards to come back that will fit into next year's budget.
Yeah. So total cost of that be about 1.47, 1.5 million. And that includes FICA, but that does not include RSA. Since it's just a one-time payment, you don't have to contribute to the RSA pension account. So something, you know, that I think from a employee retention perspective would be very, very popular. You know, and it, like I said, it's, you know, we haven't done anything monetarily wise for them, other than we gave them a flat 80 hours, which was somewhat required. We gave it to them whether they needed it or not for COVID, so that was a little bit of a kind of a bonus, but this is, you know, something that we've gotten free money for that is eligible, that, you know, we think a portion of this would be good to go to the 345 employees, so.
And I can speak for the troops I got on the ground right now. I know that I had several families suffering during COVID because their family members lost their jobs, were laid off. And this would definitely benefit those employees, and I think they deserve it.
Is there anything we need to do?
Yeah, this will require a resolution authorizing the use of these funds for this purpose. And we've got something drafted up that we need to put a little bit of fluffy language in to finish it out. But it's something that we can do Tuesday, and then we can remit the payments as soon as we get them.
Do y'all want to move forward?
Absolutely.
It would certainly obviously be very popular, but
Okay.
Let me ask, Mr. Andrew, could you research and make certain that we can send this out to all the counselors for informational purposes?
Yeah.
And make certain that's okay, and in that way, for all the council to get all this as soon as possible? It's okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right now, it's this group right here. And, Lisa Brash might need to be ready for some questions, probably.
so is
If
this,
you could, make certain that's legal.
And if I'm not wrong, looking at this agenda, I'm through on my end. Well,
Let me ask you.
I want to go on record and thank Lisa Thrash, Daniel Loki, and Lisa Bird for everything they've done to help the police department on this package that y'all have agreed to put through, and they appreciate it, and I appreciate y'all trying to help us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Can I be excused? Thank you.
No, thank you.
You
So
can
we-
stay longer if we move the PJ back in. Then you won't have to drive so far. I said you could stay longer if we move the PJ back in.
I don't know, whatever y'all decide, I'll go with it.
All right, so we ready to move forward with this?
so what are we looking on that one? Are we looking to have something on next week's agenda, or
Or you want to wait?
But it can be pulled.
we've got a placeholder for it? We wanted to be prepared,
Okay.
or is that? Like the state had, we haven't gotten ours,
That's what I
but,
thought. So the money's not here yet. but
Oh, well,
it's
let's just wait till,
The second meeting in June.
well, let's just ensure that we get that money, because I don't want to designate it if we don't have that money yet. And then if it's in the bank, it comes, then we can do that.
okay,
I mean, are y'all good with that?
Yeah.
I think you, okay. It's gonna get a little rocky,
Yeah, it's
Probably
gonna get rocky
with-
between there and them probably.
What do you mean?
blue team, red team, and everybody else, because we're moving forward with the incentives for the police department. But we,
Well, can we put language in there saying
Pending, it's, yeah, we
pending
can cover that.
money within
And
the,
that's how it was kind of written anyways, is for that, those funds when they're drawn down. I can't remember all the language that we're working on in it, but it's, because they're not here yet. But the states, I think, requested theirs now, and then they had how many days to?
they had 60 days to request it, 30 days to send it out, or something along those
It should
lines.
be fairly same, but we can cover that language. if you
And the state doesn't have a choice, they have to send it to us.
yeah, but the state, I know how the state runs.
It's not like the last one.
Not like, that's what they fixed with this one, is the problems we had with the
Really?
last one.
Walls of City Hall were cigarette paper thin. Different departments are going to know that this has been discussed.
Yeah, but I mean, I think, let's just hold it till we get the money. I mean, we got it designated for, we want it for the employees. I mean, they can know what's in there, but I mean, it's already designated. I just don't want to,
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm trying to say, is that, this conversation is going to get out there, especially if we get information all out to the city councilors and everything.
so if y'all are good with it, let's wait and then we can present a resolution after it gets here. Or y'all want to move forward?
I'm fine with the verbiage is, when the money, we receive the money, you'll get your money. I mean, because then I think some of these people are going to like, what about us, and I don't know if that'll cause any
When I
issues or not, but
used the term choppy before. Some people got it early, some people were excluded, then it caused a lot of problems. Then they had to go back and give it to, expand the group of people they gave it to. Then they had to go back and expand it to everybody. And it was choppy. But
If we don't get the money, if the language that'll be in the resolution is null and void. You can't move forward with a resolution if the money doesn't come. I mean, you can pass the resolution, but the resolution would not have the teeth to provide the money if it doesn't come. So-
Yeah, but if we don't present it, then they can't say, well, you didn't do it.
They're gonna know from this meeting.
Well, I mean,
I think they already know.
Yeah.
okay. Well, Laura Lee, what do you want to do?
We could send out, if y'all would like, we could possibly send out an email to all employees. If y'all are entertaining this. And, we're just waiting on, anyway, several ways, if y'all decide not to put it on the agenda, there's several ways to keep, inform the troops and keep them quiet. What did you say, choppy? Non-choppy?
It needs to be smooth. That's what we're looking for.
What do you think, Robbie? What, from employees?
Well, like I said, I'd never heard of this until just now, so
Okay.
maybe I'm not close enough to City Hall. But,
We can dig you a tunnel.
but obviously, I agree with the sentiment that's been said, that once one group finds out, the telegraph, the coconut telegraph among city employees is very active.
There's a thing called a street committee.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
It'll look a lot prettier. The PD incentive is there.
Yes.
The education incentive is there, and this is under it, pending the passage and distribution of the funds to the city and the amount that has been said that we are getting. Because as soon as they see, well, why isn't my department as important as the PD? And
Absolutely.
that is what we will be facing, even though they have hiring needs right now. It's 100%. What you'll start getting the phone calls. They send out that email, you will get the phone calls.
We look at things and have to from a very big picture view citywide, but most departments are going to look through things in the shade of their own lens. I mean, is that?
That's fair, and I think it's been summarized accurately. But, you know, if red team gets it and blue team doesn't, or engineering doesn't, it causes angst among the employees.
And that's the opposite of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we
Okay.
have enough.
If you're intending on doing it.
Yeah, well, that's the first
Yeah,
thing.
if you're
It's just
intending on
something-
doing it, I certainly wouldn't advertise something if you don't really think you're gonna do it. But if you're gonna do it as funds available, I think you're right, you can write it up that if funds are available, we'll do this. And if they're not available, call the president or something.
I don't know if that'll help either.
The act itself became law March 11th, so it's been on the books for over 2 months as far as what it does and who it's entitled to go to. I mean, that's public record.
And the larger cities have already started drawing down their portion. So if you're a metropolitan city like Montgomery, Birmingham, anything over 50,000 people, you get yours directly from the federal government, and you're eligible to start drawing that money down now. We're considered a basically under 50,000 municipality. So instead of a bajillion little cities and towns going to the federal government says we're giving one lump sum to the state, and the state, you distribute it out to all your smaller municipalities.
We also have 4 other elected officials that need to be informed as well. So, if Robbie didn't know, he probably some council.
I'm very happy to hear the news though.
I'd rather the whole council be together before we do this. I mean, I want it to go out, but at the same time, there's a sense of entitlement. Get over it. If the money's coming, we're gonna give it to you. We're not gonna take it for ourselves, but that doesn't mean that your sense of entitlement Big Brother gets a bonus doesn't mean you get one. Where's your, this is not even merit-based. This is a gift. So your sense of I deserve this because another department is getting that is unjustified. And I know I'm in politics and I have to make people happy to get votes, but that's not why I'm in here. So I think that the council needs to be informed and be in agreement before we move ahead with the next step. And if we want to call them all over Memorial Day weekend and make a to call back here on Tuesday and go, okay, now write it up, that's fine, I don't mind. But I think that all of us need to be ready for that. So, and once we are, then I don't mind if we put pending, proposed, and we go ahead and put our stamp on it, that's fine. I want to give it to them, absolutely.
Right.
But I do think that we don't want to just surprise the rest of the council and go, well, you were such and such Friday, we decided.
And I don't want to monkey the water, but I guess another option is it could be brought up from the floor. You send the information out, council has time to digest that over the weekend, and or you put it on the agenda. I mean, there's several ways to handle it. All of them valid.
Or I guess we could put it on the agenda, talk to everybody, and we can always remove it from the agenda if everybody's not in agreement.
Yeah.
But we don't want it to be on the published, agenda until everybody's in agreement. So, we could have it preliminary, ready to go.
But when is it going to be published? Because the holiday's Monday.
Oh, yeah.
The Tuesday, but, I mean, how can we get it to everybody? And then, can we do that?
Well, I think we can send it out to this education information.
Okay, so we could send it out to everybody and just an email today.
I think we can.
Sweet.
Yeah. The act is public record, it was passed 2 months ago.
And
It says who it's going to.
Well, the act's one thing, I'm talking about.
If, as long as you're not soliciting a yay or nay, it's just, hey, here's what we're thinking, you good with this being on the agenda. I mean, we do that, ask for a sponsor all the time, so
Okay. Are you good with
I don't
that?
see an issue with that.
Absolutely.
All right. So we'll have it, but with pending language until the funds are received. I put it on the agenda.
With that language?
Yeah.
Okay, that's how it's written anyways.
Yeah. Because we don't want choppy.
No chop.
All right, so the engineer, the raise grant?
Yes, sir, just really quickly, the RAISE grant is the new title for the federal funding for an infrastructure pool. It was previously, originally known as Tiger Grants, and then as Bill Grant. The last 2 years, we've applied for a Bill Grant to fund Queen Smith Road widening. We were unsuccessful the first year with our application. We went back in 2020 with what we thought was a better application, and we scored higher. Still didn't score high enough to get the funds. Although I will say the average distribution, about 7% of the grants get funded of all that are put in each year. What I'm asking briefly today is, I guess y'all's permission to go ahead and apply again for 2021, even though it's a new title. It's the same project, and in essence, the same application process. It's just got a different name. Still administered by the federal DOT. Secretary of Transportation will make that award at some point. The only thing I would like to ask also as a part of this, moving forward, this grant again this year, is I feel like we need to add another member to our team. We've had Civil Southeast helping us from a technical standpoint. I think this year, to maybe get us over the top, we need to add a more professional grant writer to our team, and that would cost some funds, about $9,000, which I believe I have available in my budget to do that already. Just want you guys to know that that's not been the process we've used the last 2 years. I felt like I needed to tell you that I think we need to add a team member that's a professional grant writer that's Washington, D.C. based, that walks the halls and knows the people. I hate to say that it comes down to that at some point, but if you've got 100 worthy projects and they can only give 7 of them out, I think we need some representation that way.
Step our game up a little bit.
Yes, and also I think they could add to our application as well. I think we have a very, very sound technical application, but there may be some other language that engineers just don't know that need to be put in there. And so that's my proposal.
How much is the grant again?
18 million.
So 9,000 for 18 million?
Yeah.
That might be it.
And obviously, that's a project that's very high on our list. I think you heard me make it in our presentation info here, and this is a big project we really want to get done.
Yeah.
So we're on the hook for this, but we'd love to get this federal assistance. absolutely. It would push us towards the finish line on this project.
And there's several other times previous administrations have taken DC and worked the halls up there, and we're still here where we are,
And we even did that. We've made a trip ourselves up there 2 years ago, I guess.
So it's in the budget. You got no problem.
It's funds that I have available in my budget to spend. I just wanted you guys to know that was what our plan was, and that we would like to go forward, and we'd like to add to our team this year.
you have budgeted specifically.
No, I have engineering, draft, and testing, which is what when I need to hire someone to do a task like this, that's what that's for.
Okay. I don't have a problem with it.
Very good for that.
Yeah.
We need to move into that.
If we get 18 million.
Or some large portion of it.
Yeah.
Be careful. Jared, be cutting your 1/4.
That's right, that's right. I got plenty more in the reserve tank for projects.
All right, let's move to so do we have to do a resolution or
So I
something?
just really wanted you guys to know that was our
Okay,
approach, and
yeah.
that we were gonna do that.
Okay.
And apply again. I mean, ultimately, if they're awarded, y'all will have to do some things.
Okay,
We hope that, I hope I'm back with you saying, here's what we need to do next.
okay.
Can I interject one thing?
Huh?
Interject one thing.
Yes, sir.
We had a public hearing on food trucks last 2 weeks ago, whenever. Are there any thoughts about moving forward with getting that proposed ordinance put on the agenda? We're still wanting to think about it. What's the pleasure of the committee? Because I haven't heard obviously no one from the public spoke. I think we've got incorporated the things that you guys mentioned. Something we're ready to move forward with.
I like it. I want to do it. I'm happy to sponsor it if it's appropriate for me to sponsor it. Yesterday, when we left the hospital in Birmingham, there was a sign out front. There was a sign in the cafeteria, and there was a truck out front. They're doing food trucks for the hospitals up there for employees and for patients or patients' families who you could have some kind of sushi burrito when you left the hospital yesterday. I mean, there's just, I just see huge potential for things. I mean, I never thought of it being at the hospital. I mean, but that's just the American spirit, and I'm all about it. I mean, I didn't get one. But had they had other varieties, I would have stopped just for the experience. And I just think that it's just part of the American dream is, potential for creativity there, and for even the creativity of the place they saw it. They obviously had the hospital's permission because the hospital was putting up signage supporting it all through the inside. Today is such and such. They had a list Monday through Sunday of which trucks came which day, so that their patrons and their employees had another option. Even though there was a cafeteria right there, and you can spend your money in the cafeteria, it wasn't, some people just don't want cafeteria food. Some people want another option. So I'm all about it.
And I agree, I mean,
You know
we're
I'm about it.
unless you're tired of
You ain't gotta
tacos,
worry
so,
about
like this stuff, help us expand our business.
John's not being on topics.
Did you receive any negative calls or anything?
Only, I had two people meet me after the meeting, and they were for food trucks.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if they saw the ordinance, they knew the ordinance, they were just there because of a food truck, but like I said, I don't know if they read the ordinance. I think once the ordinance really gets, sometimes it starts getting implemented, that might, you might hear from some of the food trucks or the brick and mortar folks.
This is always, you always have the option of going back and tweaking little pieces of it. If there's something that we missed or something in there that really causes problems, you can tweak little line items here or there. But, if we're ready to move forward, then I'm game to go ahead and do that if y'all are.
Sounds like we are.
All right.
So,
What's for lunch?
Not, since we're talking.
Not a sushi burrito?
Yeah.
I like sushi, but
As enthralling as this presentation is going to be, I would like to be excused.
yes, sir.
Can I be
See,
excused?
she's set the example now, everybody's.
saw where he sat. Strategic.
All right, the planning department, the sale of city-owned property.
Yeah, so this is just kind of continued discussion that has happened in the past, and as the committee probably knows, there's a few properties that the city owns people have actually reached out to us expressing interest to purchase. The one back behind Hollybrook that backs up to the interstate. There's one on Wetumpka Street. There is one on North Northington. And actually, I guess someone's reached out to us, but the city now owns a residential lot off of Mount Airy and behind Park Lane. So, of course, Daniel left, but the kind of discussion is the right procedure and process to, well, of course, we'd have to surplus, the city needs a surplus, but as far as establishing a value and then just go into the process of making that sale. I didn't forewarn Andrew, but I know he's looked at it before. I know our auditor, our finance director prefers appraisals. You know, that gives us the good market value for the sale of some of those properties. We've also kind of discussed a bid or just get a real estate agent and put it on the market for some of these. So I don't know if I'm necessarily looking for an answer or to a response today. It's just continuing that conversation. I want to get Daniel back in here to get his thoughts as far as from the auditing process. That's I don't think the law doesn't require an appraisal.
Right, the law just simply says that if a public body sells property that the public owns, it has to be for adequate consideration. What is adequate consideration? Consideration that's reasonable under the circumstances. I mean, it is kind of a case-by-case basis based on the property, its location, whether or not it's landlocked, that sort of thing. But if you have reasonable justification for the cost or the price under the circumstances, then that supports adequate consideration.
Well, 3 of the locations that are in discussion right now, I think are totally different. There's one in Hollybrook. It's landlocked. The gentleman's made an offer of $5,000. I don't know that an appraisal is needed here. It's personally, I think we ought to go ahead and accept the $5,000. There's some interest on the lot there on Wetumpka Street, and I believe Robbie Anderson had told me there's a county record show that I think it has a value of about $15,000. That might be open for discussion. Do we need to get an appraisal on that one? Do we need to go off of that? Some can say that it could be built on. I don't know that it really is. Actually, technically, it's a part of Oak Hill Cemetery property, but it got split by the railroad tracks, so there's not really a lot of good public use of it. And then the other one on the corner of Mount Airy, I think we need to get an appraisal on it and turn it over to, I think we ought to get a realtor to sell it myself.
And that's on that corner, right?
That's on that corner. And so, like I said, there's 3 different ones, 3 different ways. So I think it ought to be a case-by-case basis, and left up to the council.
On Hollybrook, that's your area, so what do you think about that?
I mean, we're not going to be doing anything with it. It's just going to sit there. If he can put something to use, then, I don't have a problem with it as long as we're going about it the way we're supposed to go about it, and technically so.
And neighbors have been asked. And
one doesn't want to communicate. But yeah, I've reached out to all of them, and they're really indifferent. We kind of offered it, if it comes up, would you want some? And just this one gentleman is really the one who wants it, and he just wants a bigger backyard essentially. Yeah,
basically, we're sort of looking at, should it be divided up directly with lot lines, or if they don't want it, then 50-50, depending on how everything, squared up. But, and we actually had a claim on it not too many months ago. A tree was going on the property line, tore up a privacy fence, and a property owner who just bought the property put a claim in on it. And
so which one is his house?
The gentleman's interested is right there. So like I said, it certainly would benefit him. He's right there. I think he just wants a little more space. But there's no well, 65's right there, but there's no real road access, so it's really only useful to the people who are adjacent. They're the only ones who can really get to it. We have an easement if we need to go bush hog and maintain anything because it's ours, but if someone else bought it, I mean, I guess they would have some kind of access, but it'd be very difficult.
How about that house in that deep cul-de-sac? Has that one been asked?
Yes.
They have.
Okay, because they look like they maintain
A little bit.
some of it.
Mhm. And Andrew, let me ask you this, if we put some kind of deed restriction on there, like it could never be commercial or no signage, interstate signage, could ever be put in there? Is there any way to sort of word that? In case this
Yeah,
guy's trying to
absolutely.
put a great big old interstate sign on there?
Billboard.
Yeah, if anything like that is put into the deed as restriction, that it'll run with the land after it's sold.
I mean, I think that'd be good to protect the neighbors and everything else.
Would that be
And,
consistent with the other houses that are also backed against the interstate there?
That's a good question.
I think the, all AlDOT has some rules and regs about the interstate, and, but now, I guess what happens with those other houses, if I'm understanding the question, they're residential, so as long as it's residential, they'd have to go through rezoning,
Yeah, and
and,
we're looking at rewriting the whole sign ordinance
Yeah.
anyway. I don't think we're going to,
We go up,
at least in the residential.
in right up north of that, several
Oh, yeah, there's a
billboards.
nice little well, there's one right there, and then, you know, right there. Yeah, there's several, and then you go past the ridge, there's 3 right there.
and I'm thinking of putting it in the deed, so then that way, the planning commission doesn't have to deal with it. That's what this guy's trying to do, because first off, how are they gonna get equipment in there to build a sign? So, I mean, I'm just thinking, this has been a little proactive, thinking, have that put in the deed, we don't have to worry about it.
Well, that worries me now about the sign,
Well, put it in the deed, then,
because I didn't even think about that. That would be a smart move on his part.
Did he
I
get-
thought about the planning department putting one out there, and that'd be a little income to the planning department. Well,
Alexander Chanel.
You've got some pretty big signs now, so
are,
let's go bigger.
are y'all good with 5,000 and restrictions?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to make sure the restrictions are there.
Did we do a pres-
You left the room. You left the room.
That's what I told him, I said, the finance director wants an appraisal.
Y'all do what you want to.
We brought up that it's individual, that we brought about with Tumpka Street, how there's Robbie Anderson Lee, there's a county value of 15 grand. So do we need an appraisal and go with that? We did, I mentioned about having an appraisal on the lot for Mount Airy and having a realtor. I don't know, how do we find a realtor?
There's one around here somewhere, I imagine.
Hey, Andrew, can we say if he tries to resell it,
We have the first right.
yeah, do we have the right to buy it back for that amount of money?
That's the same amount of money we sold it to them for. Yeah, I like that.
I'll double check, but I think that can be
That's
put
a good
as
thought.
part of the restriction on the property, like, that would run to the land.
Because that
regardless of the chain of title.
just raised a red flag to me.
And basically it keeps us from having to trying to maintain it, and obviously, we really didn't know about it, because we hadn't been maintaining it.
John, when just hearing all that,
I'm perfectly good with that. That way we're covered. That's the main thing. What I want to know is that we got ourselves covered, and, you know, if the guy's not going to try to turn into
No
another
signage,
sign.
yeah, no
you know.
signage, and we have the first right to buy it
Plus,
back.
it's getting
and
a
buy
deal on the
it.
property as it is, you know, so.
You good with that, Daniel Oakland?
The appraisal would be at the burden of the purchaser, correct? Well,
Yes.
a land appraisal is going to be 800 to 1,000, and for a $5,000 parcel, that's kind of a big expense.
And, you know, if it wasn't landlocked, it'd be a whole new animal.
They have it at 30 or 40? What is it?
The tax says 30.
30. You're talking about 5,000? I mean, that's probably reasonable. We don't have anything to back that up, but that's, that's all right.
Now, taxes, everything else around there, 30,000, and I suspect if a private owner had it, that number would be a lot lower, because they'd be fussing.
Not want to pay the value of the
Revenue
taxes.
commissioner, but, the city owns it, so
Yeah.
that person's probably never adjusted.
So once he gets it, then he'll start paying his property taxes
There you go.
in Ottumwa County. That make you feel better?
Yeah, I mean, what else is on your list?
Well, I will, this is what on the list, and I was gonna start off saying I'm not asking for any money, but, so we're trying to sell some land. And I've discussed this past, we're trying to buy some land too. I just talked to the state EMA again. I think we're pretty good to go on the Alamo Road purchase. I talked to Daniel, I'm not gonna do this Tuesday. I talked to Daniel, and we'll probably have to do a budget amendment to move that money around. It's a FEMA hazard mitigation grant, so the city it's a 75-25. We provide a 25% match. We spend all the money up front, and then they reimburse. So the property's valued at $33,000. We'll need to do closing costs and then demo the property. And I meant to ask code enforcement. I don't know what the average rate for demolition is. 5, 6, 7,000.
I was thinking 10.
I was at 10. Okay. Now this one's not a very substantial, but they have a bunch of stuff. So
You can do it this weekend, Bill.
It won't take long.
yeah, it won't take long. So, but that may end up on the budget or on the agenda soon. So.
And since you mentioned that, as we start talking about next year's budget, I do want to reach out to Judge Booth about his property on 31 by Candlestick and see about getting that in that program. And so we'll be working toward that.
All right, let's see. Next on the list, I'm sorry, jumping ahead, is Councilor Chambers' discussion on the multifamily. So the Planning Commission had discussion and voted to adopt, it's kind of a two-part thing, adopt a whole new section on multifamily zoning, and it's got what the buildings look like, the parking, the setbacks, the landscaping, there's a lot to it. Along with an amendment to the use table, section 71. Now this is part of an overall rewrite of the entire thing. This is just the first step. The main change they're suggesting in just the general R4 use table is the height. Just get rid of the foot requirement, and then the Planning Commission's recommendation was 3 stories. I believe Councilor Chambers just want to kind of discuss that further.
Yeah, could you bring those pictures up that I've asked you about? Yeah, these I have most preferred.
Yeah, well, so what these are, during the comprehensive plan process, our consultant, we had a lot of community meetings and online surveys and things. What the consultant is, they put together a series of photographs. These are more residential, multifamily residential, commercial, single family. Is 1 to 5. 1 is preferred, 5 is not preferred. So these are the more preferred. The lower the number, the better. And then we can go to the next slide. So the first slide shows, well, you just look at it yourself.
Well, my visual of it is, and this is what I've been trying to bring up in these meetings, is the most preferred pictures show more of a 1 or 2 level type building. Maybe if it looks like a third, maybe there's some type of shop or something at the bottom level, below the 2 housing levels. My thought process and concern is, are we, based off of what the public has given us feedback on, are we going along with what our constituents are saying, versus are we just going to keep on, and if you show the next pictures, less preferred, those are all 3 stories. So my thought process is, do we really want to go 3 stories if we're seeing a lot of feedback that shows differently?
I agree, because less dense, you lose density by dropping a story. And so then you have a less dense population per area. And that helps when you're looking at schools, when you're looking at garbage, when you're looking at crime. All of these things play into it with population density, per lot. And I recognize that if you're the owner of those, obviously the higher you can get, the more money you can get. So I understand it from an investment point of view, but we're not looking at the investment point of view, we're looking at our constituents and people's point of view, and that is more preferred to have less density. That's what I say. I remember when we had to I wasn't with the city, but I remember when there had to be a fire truck ordered based on the fact that we now had a bank that had 3 stories. Because until that time, there had been nothing improbable with 3 stories. And the ladder truck, the type of equipment. So all of these things, it affects departments you never even think about when you begin to change height requirements, when you begin to change density.
What do you think, Jerry?
I mean, I like the 2-story. But you're saying we could do a 3rd level if it's a shop underneath? Or are you saying just,
I mean,
Does that get into a mixed-use zoning? Is that?
It probably would.
because I like that. I mean, we went downtown Huntsville and they had 2-story, and then underneath, kind of like in downtown Montgomery, the retail underneath.
Yeah,
That was
that'd
pretty
be
neat.
That'd have to be in a business zone.
That's much more common in like the downtown area. You have the retail or some kind of office on the bottom and multi-family on top. So right now, again, we're looking at a entire change. Right now, the only things permitted in R4 are dwellings and apartments for any number of families. Use some appeal, you can do a few more things. But so right now, you couldn't do that ground floor retail residence. Again, the planning commission is starting to consider some mixed-use zones elsewhere. The PUD zoning could be a possibility for, if someone comes with a really good project that they do want to do ground floor retail or commercial and upper floor residential. So the general idea of the PD is they come to the planning commission, do a preliminary, then come to council, because it's a zone. Then council looks at it and approves it, and goes out to planning commission and works their way through that. So that's a lot more scrutiny on that PUD, but just general R4 right now, it doesn't really allow that mixed use.
Yeah, I mean, I like your idea of 2-story. Because like it's showed, that was the preferred.
Picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah. Can we get Andrew to research, make certain that isn't going to affect building down here?
I think that would say that's grandfathered in. But we acted on that a long time ago.
So at this point, you're just going to tell them that's our preference, or do we influence that? What's-
It's your decision. So the planning commission just made a report and recommendation to council, and council does
Okay, this
what
is,
they
it's
will.
our say.
So, yeah, this is your ordinance to consider. Well, that's their recommendation. Again, if you want to change it, that's your prerogative, and then we go through the record process, and it gets read in, advertised, you got to wait a little while, then public hearing, and then vote. So
Are we doing these onesies and twosies, or aren't we doing a whole?
we will. But this one was just kind of the initial. There's moratorium, and this was just the initial step of the planning commission to do the multifamily.
Okay, so the zoning ordinance rewrite, the rest of it will be coming.
Yeah, it'll be kind of later in the summer, hopefully.
So let me ask you this, Scott. What is the best action for this committee if they decide to change it? Does it go before council as is, and do they make a motion
we talked a little bit
to
about it.
amend?
I think, again, the ordinance that's going to be considered, it has to be advertised, so whoever's, I assume council chambers, but whoever is the sponsor, just like any other ordinance, the sponsor puts it on the agenda. I think either one, make sure the public knows, of course, but I think you can either bring the ordinance as the planning commission recommended, and then during the meeting say, hey, I want to consider amending this portion, or you can bring it, the amended one that you want to see. Either way, I think it's worth discussing at the meeting, just so it's open and transparent of what the changes
Yeah,
may be.
and I agree with that part of it. Yeah.
Right.
And let me ask you this, is there any way then to put in there that the historical building down here is excluded from this to make certain it's fully grandfathered in?
I'd put some language in the order, the now therefore section about any and all properties that have an active building permit can continue under there.
So there's nothing we need to do this Tuesday on this?
It's not on the agenda for this
Okay.
Tuesday, so.
Are we looking to do it for the next week, for the next meeting?
I mean, I can accommodate that if that's what Council Chambers or the commission
Yeah,
wants.
let's go ahead and get it done.
Okay. So, and just to throw in, what I would probably recommend is when when it goes for a vote. So it'll be, you got to read it in and advertise and all that. But I would also consider, or ask the council to consider terminating the moratorium. Whenever this becomes effective, terminate the moratorium sometime.
Okay. All right. NPO's Citizens Advisory Committee.
All right, so the Montgomery's Metropolitan Planning Organization is a group of governmental entities from Watauga, Elmore, Montgomery counties and municipalities. The MPO Policy Committee that the mayor sits on and other mayors and commissioners and elected officials, they are the ones who vote on a lot of the funding, federal funding that flows through the state through the MPO to do projects that MLK paving, a lot of them that we see a lot of improvements in the city through. Under the MPO Policy Committee, there's the Technical Advisory Committee. I sit on that one. And then there's the Citizens Advisory Committee, and that's, as you can read, and I got the little handout, it's the same language. It's the kind of citizen participation arm that the MPO relies on just to hear from the citizens' perspective. And there's a number of citizens from all the participating agencies. Prattville has 2 spaces or 2 seats on that committee, and they're currently vacant. So we just wanted to, someone like who lives in Mantlewood wanted to be a citizens.
I know some people.
There you go. They do meet, just something to keep in mind, they meet on the 3rd Thursday of every other month, I guess odd months, at 2 p.m. Now, right now, they've been doing virtual, but in times past, and I'm sure at some point in the future, they'll go back to meeting in person down in Montgomery. So that is a consideration if someone's willing to serve. That is a time commitment. It's every other month for a couple hours, but we do it again in Montgomery at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
John Lee, you interested?
Let me look and see.
And if you don't mind, anybody who is interested, ask them to go through the city clerk, have a little form,
Okay.
like all other boards, committees, and so forth.
Yeah, but it is certainly beneficial because, again, the TAC, the CAC, they meet, they make recommendations to the MPO committee that the mayor and others get to hear and consider. So. All right, next up, the 2020 census numbers. We saw those a little while ago come out. Alabama's got over 5 million in population now. That's back from 2010. That's 227,000 that we've increased the state. The good news is that we kept all 7 representatives. This is the map from the census. Those the Rust Belt states and California all lost a seat. Texas was the big winner with 2. Texas grew like 15-16%. They added over 4 million people in population. So, and it's not necessarily about losing and gaining population. Mississippi lost population. Alabama gained a significant amount for a little over 5. I forget how many percent points we gained, but It's just the electoral math. You have 435 representatives, and they have to be distributed, so. But yeah, good news for the state. What that means for Prattville, we're still waiting on the smaller geography numbers. So we know how many people live in Alabama, we just don't know how many live in Prattville yet. According to the census, August 16th, they should start giving out some data. Now it says, however, it'll be in a format that requires additional handling, so leave it to the government to provide the data, but then make it hard to read. Then by September 30th, we should have the full set of data. So we'll start looking at the city level. And what's that mean for Prattville? Your city council districts are drawn based on those census numbers. So we'll start looking at some preliminary, of course, well before the next election. The city will want to have those done. I would predict District 3 is going to be a whole lot smaller land-wise. Yes. You want to drive as far, but hopefully everybody will have a similar number of houses. The overarching factor in redistricting, reapportionment is equal representation. So whatever that total number is, you divide by 7, and that's your goal for your districts. Have that many. So like I said, 3. I imagine the land area will get a lot smaller, but the numbers will go up for everybody. I imagine. So it's just preliminary. Like I said, we're still waiting on the numbers. It'll be a little while for those to come out, but I think we may reach out to maybe an outside firm to help with that. There are people who specialize in it to kind of put those numbers together.
In 2012, we used internal city planner to pull this map together, and I would appreciate the council finding the funding to hire an outside firm to look at it and guide us and direct us on that, because there's some areas that are very unique.
Can I just ask a question just for knowledge's sake? When it's established, if there's changes, I mean, how does that affect, like, this term? Do we still base everything, our constituents are going to still be where they are now, and then the next go around when the transition hits?
At voting, next voting time.
Okay.
So, and actually, one time in 2000, I ran in District 6. Didn't get that nod from the citizens. I did not move, and there was redrawing, and next thing I know, I'm in District 1. And so council has final say on all the lines and everything else. So, but there are some rules and guidelines you have to go by. But I do truly believe we need to get a professional in here, and District 2 is going to be, I think, 1, 2, and 3 definitely going to be, and 7. There's going to be quite a few of them going to be affected.
Yeah, and doing your best to kind of keep existing lines where political continuity or representative continuity is a fully valid thing. But I just knowing what we all know about the growth pattern of the city, it's going to be a very different look, I think.
What is that? What's that in 3 up there? The big old island, what is that?
That's the event property that's slowly shrinking due to Glenbrook.
And we just annexed a lot of that white end, didn't we?
Yeah.
A few more acres the other day.
Just above the 3, number 3.
We're going to see another one in the next 30, 60 days for Phase 9 of Glenbrook. So, like I said, it's slowly shrinking, mainly because of Glenbrook.
Can I change the color of my district?
That's just randomized for the map. So we can make it a nice Prattville crimson red if that's what you prefer.
No, not like your shirt. That'd be awful. There's already enough red in there. So.
But certainly, as soon as the census data comes out, we can interpret it. We will share with everybody because I think we're all excited to know how much. I wouldn't be shocked if we hit 40,000. I think last estimates from 1819 were 37 and change, maybe. I think.
I heard from 35 to 38. So.
Yeah. And if they accurately captured all the new growth, I'm looking forward to it.
I'll have to commend Lisa and Jamie and yourself on the census thing. I know y'all worked hard to get out there, and I think we were above average.
Oh, right. I don't know if they did it by city, but Autauga County was 3rd highest in response rate. behind, I think, Madison and Shelby counties in the state before they started doing the census. People started coming out to the door, door to door. But yeah, Altarga County was very responsive. So.
I heard from some in the business, they complimented us on our banners, our garbage trucks, everything that we put out there, and so I think it paid off.
I made my children do it so that they would know when they were adults what this was about
Absolutely.
and how to do it. So
Right, yeah.
I mean, I'm like, I'm gonna show you how to get to the page and then you're gonna do that. So.
Right, and it's so important because we have 10 years that so many programs rely on these numbers, grants and of course representation.
I think they sent ours back because they said your ethnicities don't. This doesn't work. You're not a real family.
All right, next up on the list is the Board of Zoning Adjustment. 3 of the members, well, I'll back up. So the Board of Zoning Adjustment is made up of 5 regular members and 2 supernumerary, or they're kind of backup, so if a regular member can't make it, they call a supernumerary. They're appointed by council. 3 of the members, their terms expire next month. It's actually after the June meeting, so we have a little bit of breathing room on that. Jerry Crosby, he joined as a supernumerary member actually in 14, so he's been on a little while. Sarah Johnson, she just started last year. She was serving a term that someone else vacated. And then Michael Whaley, used to be Chief Whaley, now he's just Mr. Whaley. He is a supernumerary, and he's been serving since actually 2009. He's been on for a while. All 3 are very good members. They're 3-year appointments. Again, Ms. Johnson, she just got one last year because she was serving out someone else's term. Since I knew the Finance Committee was meeting, Ms. Johnson lives in District 7.
I've known her since I was 16.
Really?
She
She lives back behind Chris's Barbecue back through the neighborhood. I think so. Right. Mr. Crosby and Mr. Whaley, I believe, are both in District 5, so I can reach out to them. Just so you know, the other members, Mr. Knapp, Mr. Barrett, Mr. Duke, Mr. Parker. So Ms. Johnson, Mr. Knapp, Mr. Barrett, Mr. Duke, all those 4 people, they've all been appointed since I've been here, so not very long. Mr. Crosby, Mr. Whaley, Mr. Parker, they've been on for several years each. So it's a pretty good mix of new and less new members, which I think is a good thing. You have the kind of the institutional knowledge from some of them, and then the new blood that comes in. So, if it's the pleasure of the council, we can certainly work on getting them to the agenda. And I'll reach out to the District 5 council member on those 2. If that's.
So is that a 6:15 council meeting?
I don't know when.
So 6:1. We got the 2nd June meeting.
Yeah, I can get on the 1st or 2nd June meeting. We ought to be fine there. The BZA, I think, meets on the 8th of June, I think, so they're fine for the next meeting. I do want to go and get them.
Well, do you want them on the 1st?
We can do the 1st, that's fine.
Y'all good with
We're
that?
kind of slammed.
Right.
We got a big agenda.
That's why I didn't want to, I'm sorry.
2nd June.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting that 1st is next Tuesday. We'll do the 2nd one in June, that's fine. Yeah, so that's why I didn't want to
It
add.
says until duly reappointed,
Exactly,
right?
right. And they'll still be within that timeline for the June meeting, and then July will.
Just trying to make sure I got all my order things.
All right, so we've been talking about the zoning ordinance itself being rewritten. By the way, there is a work session June 2nd, Wednesday, June 2nd, starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the Doster Center dining room. That'll be kind of the planning commission will be going through several sections, and I'm going to send those out soon, but several sections of the zoning ordinance. We do want to consider a new zoning map after we do the ordinance, but there may be some areas that if it's kind of what the mayor and council's kind of direction, we can look at doing before. Just some good examples. I just picked a few examples. This one is Newton Street, 31, or Memorial and Main. Rite Aid's, what's that little pointer? Old Rite Aid's right there, down at Heaven, Winn-Dixie. So I don't know how many years. I have an old paper map from 2007 that this is also, this red color is B2, general business, general commercial. It's in Deep Street, Gillespie Street. They are clearly residential. People live there, their houses. There are a few commercial uses, EMA or non-residential uses. EMA's got their office there, 911. But almost all of these are just residential, but I don't know what the history is, why that became zoned B2, but that's one that probably should be fixed. Just some other examples. So here, the mayor mentioned the rat farm earlier, but this is, the railroad track east side of downtown. All that purple is M1, industrial. I'm sure years and years ago that might have made sense, but nowadays it probably not. So we'd probably look at some type of commercial or something more appropriate than industrial. This is one, again, this is on the 2007 map. The red is general commercial, this white look is highway commercial. I don't know what this is, but there's a little corner that's neighborhood commercial, neighborhood business. That's just, I don't know if it's a mapping error or what, but that's on the 2007 paper map that I found. So just some are just kind of a little silly, that just needs to be fixed. I don't understand that.
Can you go back to the very first one? Because I thought it was very interesting. They even got a house split. The green right there off of, go to the left a little bit.
Oh, right there.
Yeah, isn't there a house that split right there?
Well, it's a house or what?
Right.
Right,
I'd
yes.
say that's a house.
To your right, just a little bit. Right there, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it's not a house, but it looks like
And,
one in one.
Yeah, and
So,
there's
yeah,
a
we do
lot
need
of
to
it.
clean that up.
My preference is typically just follow the lot lines. I'd rather most lots be all one zoning than split like that. Again, some of these may be mapping errors. I don't know if you've paid attention to the zoning ordinance that the council considers. It says the zoning ordinance was adopted in 1950. Obviously, it's amended a lot. The zoning map was adopted in 1987. So hopefully we'll get those numbers a lot more current. But yeah, some of them may just be simple mapping errors. That line probably should be along the proper line, but I don't know.
And especially there on Newton and everything, a lot of them are residential, but as a business, there's certain ordinances and stuff we can't enforce.
Right, it's a little hard to know. I think the last slide I got, so this is, we mentioned Matt Gray Park. Again, Gurney was there, so I understand, I guess, why it was M1, or industrial. City owns it, so we're not in a lot of threat of an industrial application or use moving in there, but kind of hard to see. This brownish color, College Heights area, up to the school, that's R4. That is zoned for, again, what R4 says, it's residences of any number, really. So single family is certainly fine in R4, but they could, again, they're going to be really restricted on the size of the lots. But that's a bunch of R4 there. That's probably not the best zoning for that. So,
Isn't there a housing project in there?
is that the one right there?
Presley is.
Presley
Yeah.
and Jones and all that, right? So that may be fine right there, but all down here is actually still R4 as well. So that's the Highland, what's it called?
North
Highland
Highland
Center.
Community. That's on B1, neighborhood commercial. So again, kind of just might have made sense in 1987 or whenever it might have been zoned that way, but now is probably time. So that is one of our goals, is once we do the zoning ordinance, to really spend some time going through the zoning map and maybe just do like a mass adoption of a whole new zoning map. So we'll do a lot of public hearings on that. But,
How long do you think that'll take? Because, got some activity right there, I guess where the venue used to be. There'll be a car wash coming up.
yeah, I think the whole map change, like I said, I'd like to wait until after the zoning ordinance itself, and then maybe a couple months after that. But if we want to focus or target some, we can begin the process now. Like Duke Street or something if we need to. So.
Well, I don't know about targeting.
Well, I won't say, sorry.
I'm highly interested on
Right.
behind Church's Chicken.
Yes, sir.
Of course, there's a lot of mixed use there. If you go by the hospital, you already got some, I guess, office use maybe. I think you mentioned EMA and you got, I've got this engineering company up there. Won't mention their name since they're not in the room. But, to me, to protect our citizens and everything else, especially right there on Newton, behind Church's Chicken, I think,
But we'll grandfather in the businesses.
They would be.
Yeah, let's say.
They just couldn't expand or add to anything like that, but they could
but
keep on.
should they be rezoned? I mean, if you're talking up there on the Gillespie side.
I think we need to look a lot closer to the Gillespie side, because there is a few more.
Okay.
I pulled, we looked at business licenses and permitting. There's one or two here on Newton. Some of them are almost like home occupation type, uses. So none of them are, I don't think of them like a retail or anything that just has a lot of traffic, people coming and going. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard from several of the residents up and down there, really everything from the goats way back. I don't know if anybody here remembers that. Remember the goats? Okay. Which if they'd really known that was business, probably was nothing they could do about the noise on that one. But we have heard from a lot of citizens on there about noise, and I think this would be a better way for us to help protect them.
Last one, and my graphic doesn't want to show up, but last one to talk about is, so the Planning Commission did adopt Project Primal 2040, the new comprehensive plan at their April meeting. I would like to present it to the council. Again, the comp plan is really a document of the planning commissions. So they've adopted, they've gone through that process. However, as you've noticed, a lot of the suggestions and information there is money related. So I know Robbie and Kelly, at the very least, both utilized the comp plan for some of their presentations for the work sessions recently, because it does recommend some improvement, infrastructure improvements, parking and recreation, even fire station, because again, the horizon on this one's 20 years out. So it's not necessarily things we'll buy next year, but may need to be budgeted in the future. So that's why we would like to send it to the council to at least, I don't know about adopt, or we'll find the right process and terminology, but at least accept and acknowledge that this is the comp plan that will be used as a guide for future decision making.
What options does the council have on that when it comes before them?
Like I said, I think it could be just an acceptance or an acknowledgement or a reception. I mean, I'll find the right language, or you can adopt it. You're certainly fine on that. There's some language in state code about it being presented to the council. I'll figure out the right term, but I would like it to be at least received by and acknowledged by the council that it's a city document, I guess, city plan.
So is that a June 15th?
No.
Yeah, again, I don't want to.
Let's go with July.
That's fine. It's
Okay.
not.
What do you think?
Like I said, the planning commission has adopted
What do you
it, so
think?
it's ours, it's
July
theirs, they use it now, so.
I'm just trying to make sure I get them all down.
Or do you want it pushed out more?
It's up to you. Like I said, I don't want to put it on an already burdened agenda or already full agenda. We can certainly wait until.
Because I think the next two meetings are going to be,
Pretty packed.
yeah. So
Well, let's shoot for July 6th, and then if we need to punt it again, we can. Does that work?
yeah.
I think that was the end of my list.
Do you need a work session for that?
If you want one, like I said, it's gone through the pretty extensive public process. All those meetings, the planning commission had a couple of public hearings on it. You certainly can. You can have a public hearing or a work session, but I don't think it's necessary.
A lot of us went to many of those,
Right,
so
right.
we should all be very familiar with it as far as needing a presentation. I don't think that's necessary.
Okay.
And the public had a chance to participate. I mean, they're the reasons we have those ratings, like, they've been deeply involved.
I think we've got an email copy of it for everybody to go through.
Okay.
And we'll do a bound hard copy settings.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else that anybody would like to talk about?
Do you mind if I get sponsors on all this stuff we talked about for next Tuesday? So who has the Bearcat? Jerry.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay. What about the two police department hiring incentive program and education?
I'll take it.
Okay. What did we decide on the PJ? Is there anything immediate on the PJ?
I put hold.
Hold? Okay. So more discussion, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Alcohol ordinance with the fencing requirements.
We said we're good with that one, right?
Oh, yeah.
To go forward.
You want to
He's trying to
sponsor?
get a sponsor.
Uh,
Who does that fall under?
That's police.
That's police again. So I'm hoping this will be-
You're trying.
I'm sure we'll be.
You don't have to read any of it.
Yeah, that's right.
What
But it's
about
just finding somebody to
Give me an
read.
extra bottle of water.
All right, go ahead. Yeah, that's
noise
fine.
ordinance?
Yeah, I'll sponsor that.
Okay. Smoking ordinance weren't doing anything. The citywide rescue plan stuff, we'll send out an email to inform the council of what's going on. Any of you three want to sponsor that? It's personnel related, finance related.
Any, you two
I
want
can do that, that's not.
Okay. Raise grant didn't require anything. Sale of city-owned property, that little $5,000 Scott thing, you want that to surplus it on the second June meeting?
Yeah, we can push that one.
Okay, so we'll do that. Anybody, whose district is that?
That's mine.
You want to do that one?
I'll do that.
So we have two stipulations on that one? No signage
First right of refusal,
at selling?
5,000.
Yes.
And then the food truck, Laura Lee wanted.
Laura Lee's got the food truck.
Make sure you tell them all about it.
BZA terms are expiring, those three guys. Scott's gonna get with, one of them was in y'all's district.
I'm Sarah.
I'll talk to Council Stritcher about that.
Across the end.
So are you good, Laura Lee, with
I am.
sponsoring that
Absolutely.
lady? All right, and then the comp plan will be 7/6 unless it gets crazy.
But now I remember that.
Clarity on two things. The Mount Airy, deal with us getting an appraisal and a realtor to sell that.
I'm good with that. Y'all good with that?
I am, I don't, we're gonna have to look, seriously have Andrew look into how we get a realtor, because we don't want any
Right.
question about who we use, how do you pick out of a pool of, private realtors. We don't want to give any special treatment to anybody or whatever. So just as long as we're following some kind of guided.
Or do we even use a realtor then? Do we get an appraisal?
For sale by owner,
and we-
who's the owner?
And I mean.
All phone calls to Scott.
I get 6%.
I don't know about a bid.
I don't think that's ethical.
Doc was saying something about do a bid. I mean, just need some guidance.
Right.
I think we need to move the property. It doesn't have any, we don't have any plan for it.
Sure, it's not in the.
That'd be more like an auction. Auction.
Or do we need to get Andrew to give us some,
I think that's-
can we turn it over to Andrew and
Yes.
say, Andrew, handle it?
Yeah.
So what about the R4 and the story, 2-story, 3-story?
I like your recommendation, and you're on that committee, and that was your recommendation, and it has statistical citizen background, so if you want to either
Yeah.
go ahead and amend the document now to present it to us so that we vote one time, or if you want to present the document and then we amend it that night, I don't see how we're gonna have any.
Anybody have any preference or thoughts?
Not this meeting or June 15th?
I've got it read it in on the second June meeting,
Okay, the
unless you
15th.
want to move it up.
No, I'm good with that. Just, I guess we gotta decide
So
how we
read
want
it
it
in and then punt it.
presented. Do we wanna go ahead and change it versus,
Having them it on the table, I think that's better.
I think
Just less
procedurally,
steps.
it's less
Less steps.
confusing if you have it as you,
okay.
yeah.
Like how
let's
we
just-
want it.
Right.
Okay, let's do that.
And you'll sponsor that one. Yes. Okay.
Wetumpka Street, property. Citizens inquiring about that.
I think we ought to sell it to him. It's not, especially if it's split, it's not completely road facing, it's not available for a separate household to be built on. And we're not using it for cemetery lots.
Thank you.
Go off of, go off of tax records or get an appraisal or,
What's the tax out of that, Scott, do you know?
I was about to pull up, I don't.
Is that yours, Laura? then?
No, it's not. It's
that's
two, that
Stritch
Marcus.
Okay.
I think.
You're right, it's on the other side, that's Stritch.
Yeah.
Marcus is across the street.
She's not working there today, so let's see.
That'll be valued at 15 or below, but I don't know. You know about those tax office people?
This is not his first radio.
No, seriously.
You got this bound.
15.
15 grand.
I'm in the wrong career. Put me on the Price is Right. Did we have an offer from the gentleman?
Have
Or is
not
he-
had a value, dollar amount, no, just they're, interested in it, and,
I think 15 is appropriate, but I don't think 15 is what we should sell it for. I think it would be below that. I think they've got it valued well, but it's not, that's
We
not
want
market value.
to say this is what it shows, but what, do you have an offer? And then,
well, what if I tell them, if y'all want to offer 15 grand, we're willing to entertain that, if you want to go get an appraisal and come back.
Your finance guy likes that.
I don't
Because then we have
understand.
documentation for 15, but I don't think that's not market value. But then, once again, you're going to look at $1,000 appraisal.
We did a, just so you know, we did a kind of preliminary look, it's zoned R3, single family residential. It is a funny shape,
It's got a frontage, but maybe not enough to build on.
yeah, it probably, we think it's probably buildable, and it's not, a variance would not be just out of left field, because it's such a funny shape, but we're looking at setback, again, what's the side setback over here, or side over here, or whatever, but, Robbie and I kind of looked at it, we think it's buildable, and if it's not, I think they could, if they needed a very minimal variance, I don't think that'd be unreasonable to ask, just because, again, the funny shape of it. It's a unique feature of that lot.
So what does he want it for? Just,
From what the only thing that someone could do is sink this house right now, so.
okay.
Well, he already lives next door though, so he doesn't want it for himself. Is he talking about building it to sell, a spec?
Actually, what was
Or does he want
relayed to
yard?
me was they just really
They want
wanted
the
to
yard.
take the yard.
Oh, yeah, that makes it even easier.
Well, if they're not building for spec, then I say,
Do we put restrictions on it, just like we're gonna do the other one, so that,
no billboards.
Because what I was thinking, say, when you look up here at Dunkin' Donut, we were told a lot, one, there's gonna be a strip mall up there, right beside it, and we don't have a strip mall beside Dunkin' Donut. Fixing to turn them over to code enforcement, but they got a for sale sign on there. So, I'm just saying that we might hear one thing and then they can say, well, I've changed my mind later on. So, if y'all put some restrictions on there, that's,
If it's zoned for residential, I think I don't know.
The whole area is, all that yellow is single family residential.
I just don't want to see the city take it, if they decide to build a spec or build for a friend or something. We don't want to take a hit and then them turn around and have huge value. So I'd rather restrict it if we're going to sell it for 15 or under, if we can do that.
When you say restrict, what?
Just keep it where it has to be his yard. It goes with one parcel, maybe reparcel, redraw the parcel so that it belongs to the house next door. It's not a separate parcel available for building. That'd be a killer deal if you're actually going to bulldoze those trees and put a nice new house on Wetumpka Street. Who doesn't want to live on Wetumpka Street?
me. I don't live on Washington.
is
Soon
that
as
for
the
June
project.
1st or June 15th? Or-
After the sewer.
After
Wait
the
this long, he can
appraisal
wait a little
is
longer.
done.
Yeah, he
After,
will.
okay, so we're not doing this next, I think that.
Unless they want, now if he wants to buy it for 15, rock and roll, but if it's not, I would say he needs to pay for the
I feel
price.
Highway 14 in it, Mayor.
All right, anything else good for the group?
Okay, well, I need some, what I tell the people on Temple Street? What did I miss?
15 and it's yours or an appraisal, and we want something in writing to make it your yard. What do we need to do with that stuff to make it one parcel?
Make it one parcel.
A subdivision.
Make it one parcel so they cannot build on it, except for maybe like a
A storage shed or a pool house.
No residential?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll pass that along.
If they subdivide into one parcel, then you can't build another house.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Just-
I like that.
Will, you got anything for us?
No, sir.
Okay.
Are you happy you
Just
came?
enjoyed.
You guys can excuse yourself, we appreciate that.
It was boxed in.
He's regretting his
No alternative.
centuries.
All right, that concludes our meeting.
All right,
Thank you.
He's